Hello, hello, everybody. Happy Monday, and welcome back to another LinkedIn Live. Quick reminder before we start talking to Stephen, we are streaming this both on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So if you want to watch this replay or any other old replays, you can go to YouTube. Just type in Fail Coach or Micha Matlievski, and you'll easily find my channel. We're slowly climbing with the subscribers. We are aiming for 300 very soon. So if you're there, feel free to subscribe. But without me going into too much random rambling, Stephen, if you can unmute yourself now, and welcome to the show. Welcome to into this episode. And if you can do me a favor and really quickly introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure, happy to. Thanks for having me on. Steve Catanzano, and my background's been in tech for over 25 years, building software type of companies. Originally based out of Boston, now living in Sarasota, Florida.
Oh, okay, that was super quick. Well, Stephen, we have a very interesting title for this episode, and it says getting an exit isn't always easy. Now, I've had my fair share of exits, either mine or exits of my clients. So I think I know what you're trying to say here, but can you introduce us a little bit into the whole exit topic?
Sure. Yeah. So I've created a couple of different companies, and one of them was venture capital backed. And this is from just a lot of experience over the years of building companies. In addition to that company, I've had three other software companies that I've created. Have a whole bunch of different types of investors involved, whether they're angels or venture capital. And sometimes, even though you do everything right, it doesn't always end up the way you want it to. And finding that exit isn't always easy. And one particular company was a company I started called Digital Broadband Communications, and it was based in Boston. And we were one of the first companies to deliver high-speed DSL bandwidth to homes and businesses in Boston at the time. And this was I started the company in 1998, and we raised our first round of capital, and then we started building it from there. And do you want me to go through the whole story there of how we started and went along? Great.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think stories like this can really add value to fellow entrepreneurs. So yeah, please just share as much as you want.
Yeah, I was in my early 30s when I started it, and I worked for a company that created technology around DSL. So we were the founders of the tech, and I was in that job, and I was licensing that technology out to companies, so telecom companies and chip companies, and really propagating the idea of high-speed broadband. Before that, people were all dialing up to the internet over slow-speed modems, and broadband was just starting to come into play. And then deregulation happened in the telecom industry, which opened the door to allow companies to come in and use the phone lines that exist from Verizon and other carriers. So I left the company I was at that created technology. I filed to become a CLEC in Massachusetts, and we became one of the first approved CLECs in the state. And then we went off to get venture capital, and probably talked to 30, 40, 50 venture capital firms with our business plan in hand. And eventually found a great firm that wanted to help build the company. And we raised our first round of $3 million at that point. And that was probably 1998, I think it was. And then from there, that was a $4 million capital raise, kind of based on a business plan, but we did a lot of work around making sure we had partnerships in place with Verizon, our license as a CLEC, all these different things you need to do to sort of be prepared and show that you can raise money and you can grow a business. Along with, when I raised the money, the entrepreneur in residence at the company that funded us joined the company as a CEO. And then I was the senior VP of business development and one of the board members and founders. And so we went from there as a business plan to growing the company to from 2 people to 300. And we raised over a period of 3 years, about $80 million, and we had a line of credit from Cisco Systems for their equipment. We did all the things right that we needed to do, and we were able to start. We had about 10,000 customers in 2000. So we were growing very rapidly. There was unlimited demand for what we were doing. We had the capital we needed, all the things that were in place to go. And then we had JP Morgan was interested in taking us public, and we started down that path in the beginning of 2000. And they put a valuation on the company of $850 million. And everything was great. Everyone was excited about the company and where we were going. And we were on our way.
Boom, the dot-com bubble.
Yeah, exactly. 2000 was a very different year. It feels a little bit like today with a lot of things going on that are, seem kind of overwhelming as far as valuations in the stock market, everything else. But dot-com bubble burst that year. And it wasn't just dot-com. The telecom industry was a big part of what was going on then and how people were measuring the value of companies. And we kind of went from an $850 million valuation to zero by the end of the year, because the company decided the investors in the company decided that because we couldn't see an exit any longer and the market was on its massive downslide, that it was best to close the company down at the end of the year. So even though we're right at that peak of being able to get to an exit, and we had sort of unlimited demand from customers that were buying our services, we still missed the window. The market shifted and changed. Our competitor that we were being valued against was a $10 billion company at the beginning of 2000, and they were under $1 billion by the end of the year. So in comparison, our valuation was gone.
But Stephen, you were selling a service. So you had subscribers, you had cash flow and so on. Were you guys not at the level where you would be profitable just yet, or what was the story there?
Yeah, the story is the race to get an IPO is really the story. And to get an IPO, you've got to show, a certain trajectory, a certain growth rate, and all those things were happening. So we started in Massachusetts. We were profitable there. We were profitable in Rhode Island, but then we were also extending out into New York and New Hampshire and Vermont and all these other places. So, we had a very high burn rate and growth plan. And, you kind of get to this point where you can't just slow that down fast enough. So suddenly if we needed to get to that IPO to get the additional capital to keep the engine going, and weren't kind of set up to say, let's stop here, get cash flow positive and end. So that's part of the challenge. When you're racing for an IPO, you tend to get way over your skis. And
well, Stephen, interesting what you're saying here, and it doesn't really. I think it doesn't really necessarily have to be racing for an IPO. When the macroeconomic situation is good, entrepreneurs tend to over leverage themselves. Yep. Whether that's a race to IPO, scaling, or just taking more loans to grow faster, or just any kind of leverage on leverage on leverage. And we've seen that with the dot-com bubble. We've seen same thing repeat 2008, 2009. The whole macroeconomic situation before that crash, amazing. And we're seeing that right now as well. Banks sitting on a shitload of cash, yep. Real estate's rising, shares rising, everything is just going up, crypto, whatever. And it just feels like another bubble.
Yes.
That will blow. We just don't know when. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. Nobody really knows how the wizards at all those national bank federations will be able to maneuver through this situation. But eventually it must burst. So one thing is, well, at least to me, it popped out. So because you guys were rushing for an IPO, that meant scaling, and showing that we can do more and bigger. And then once we get the money in, we will, again, be profitable. But now we are in a growth phase. Can cash flow and cash reserves is a really, really important foundation in business if you don't want to be over leveraged and exposed when something like this happen. So I would love if, because I talk about foundations all the time and stuff like that, but I would love for you to tell us a little bit about strong, solid foundations. Maybe if you travel a little bit back in time, if you could do certain things differently, what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, their original business plan was much more focused on being a regional player. So sort of own the market in New England. So we would own Massachusetts, we'd own New Hampshire and some of the New England states, and we've accomplished that. We actually did accomplish that right from the beginning, or very quickly. It was sort of going beyond that became the bigger challenge, where we need to extend and spend more capital to grow faster and faster into new markets. But it's exactly what you described. You had to, to get to an IPO, you had to be a certain size, and you had to have certain growth trajectories to achieve that. And that was one of the challenges, and it's still a challenge today. I mean, small companies don't typically do IPOs. You've got to be able to show that you can take in more capital and grow aggressively from there. And that becomes the challenge. Building a better foundation, is something I learned a lot from that experience, and everything since then has been all about focusing on, sort of getting to a cash flow positive position, not having to worry about whether we're raising more money in order to survive. If the market changes and the market shifts, we're going to be fine. We have patience at that point. We can wait till things change again and look for an exit or an IPO at a better time. I think those are really important fundamentals that you should be looking at when you're building your business. And I think especially with what's going on today, because it does feel a lot like 2000 again. All the metrics are very close to the same.
But Stephen, another thing, I mean, it's not everyday thing when you can talk with somebody who went through similar-ish things and through ups and the downs and so on. So one thing that I want to ask you, when you look at the media, they are trying now to almost put some panic mode, like, ooh, things are gonna collapse, everything. But it's never that the whole world collapses.
No.
I mean, if that will happen, then only Will Smith will survive anyway, so we don't have to worry about that situation. But how do you see comparing, or maybe if we go back in time and compare it to the dot-com bubble, what the next bubble burst might be and how it might look like, and how it might not be the end of the world for everybody?
Yeah, it's from a business standpoint, I think we definitely feel like we're in 2000 again, with valuations at their peaks and lots of money available in the marketplace, and all those things that are happening right now. But I think it's when you look at sort of those dynamics that are happening, you also look at other things that are going on where inflation seems to be going up, cost of living is rising. Even the amount of money people are making is sort of being depressed in a lot of ways. I recently did a study for a different company where we've only seen incomes growing over the past 20 years at 24% over 20 years. And then you start comparing that to housing costs and education costs and all these other things. The amount of money you have, the dollar value isn't nearly what it once was. Doesn't go as far. And so that's one of the challenges that was going on back then too, and it's certainly happening now. The rates people are paying for rental units and property values, I mean, all indicators of what's really happening.
It's pretty crazy. I just heard a few days ago that I think rents have gone up 20 or 25% in just 1 year.
Yeah.
And a few other things like that. I mean, they say that the official inflation is like 6% in the US or something like that. But then when you take certain other things that are not in that basket that they're calculating, it can easily go into double digits, and not just to 10, but even further up. So yeah, things are, but let's go back to getting an exit isn't always easy. So you shared your story and how it wasn't easy to get an exit with that company, but I'm sure there's more of a story there, and things that you've done since. So yeah, let's go into that.
Yeah, I think it's that was a learning lesson without question. So it's kind of swinging for the fences, trying to get a company growing really fast, and since then sort of took a step back and created a couple of other companies, and much more smaller applications. So I created an email archiving company, which we packaged and sold, and really started focusing on sort of the fundamentals of building a business, and not necessarily having to raise lots of capital and grow to a huge company, but getting it to a sustainable level where you become very attractive and you have positive cash flow and you can meet all your needs and demands, and then when an exit shows up, you're kind of ready to go. So different strategy and different approach. And it really depends on where people are. In that scenario too, you're not giving up your company. You're not giving up all your ownership to other people or losing control. One of the key factors too we found in the other company was losing board control. Once we sort of got to a point where we didn't have control of the company anymore, we didn't have majority ownership, we didn't have control of the board, it became out of our hands. And at that point, even though we had a couple of different times where people approached us about an exit or an acquisition, we were kind of overruled, and the board wanted to get big faster and get to that IPO. And so it's another thing for entrepreneurs to really be thinking about. Board control, cash flow, all those things put you in control as an entrepreneur of where your company's going. And once you kind of lose some of that, there's others who may have a slightly different agenda. I think the agenda is kind of the same, but the path there is a little bit different.
I've been there myself. My last startup, because we were growing super fast as well. Yeah, your share gets diluted and diluted and diluted and diluted, and at some point, I had no say any longer, and those financial guys, they look at is Excel sheets, and there was suddenly no room for innovation, for trying something new. And the funny thing is, something new got us where we were because we created something that nobody else was doing beforehand. But then suddenly, if it doesn't go through Excel sheet, if it doesn't show positive ROI almost from day one, well, we're not giving you money for that. So yeah. But Stephen, do you start new companies from scratch, or do you look for existing small businesses, I don't know, 6-7 figure range, and you enter in and then transform them and grow them and sell them? What do you typically do? What's your typical situation?
Yeah, I've done both. So after that company, we ended up closing down the company at the end of the year, which is really unfortunate, because our competitors kind of picked up all of our customers that we had, and they had sort of what I call more patient capital, that investors who continued to invest in them over the next couple of years, and then when things got better, they got great exits. But during that same time, because of the dot-com burst that took place afterwards, we acquired a data center, 40,000 square foot data center. And we were able to go into that data center. We picked it up for almost nothing because it was another dot-com company that went out of business, and there was an asset sitting there that no one had any use for. And we were able to take that over for very little money, and then build that up into a full-scale data center operation, became a disaster recovery center for companies that needed failover for their systems. And we turned that into a nice, healthy business. And then since then, you started other companies that from the ground up. So an email archiving platform and software, and I also did a equity crowdfunding platform as well. And those were from the ground up software developments.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And what's your current passion right now? How is it pronounced? KnaQ or KnaQ?
It's pronounced KnaQ, KNAQ.
Okay, yep. Okay. So what? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so KnaQ is, it kind of comes back to what I mentioned before about income growth, and started really looking into hearing all the time about the need for additional income for so many people, and the fact that income's only grown 24% over 20 years, and housing costs are up 100%, and education costs, retirement costs, all those things. We really discovered that there's a huge need for people to create additional income or full-time income as well. There's also a huge trend from millennials who want to be independent workers and have economic freedom and do their own thing. So that's what KnaQ is focused on. So we're a social marketplace, and we're really designed to allow people to come on the platform and offer all different types of skills that they may have. So we have things like integrated video capabilities, so people can come on and teach, whether you're a local school teacher or teaching a language, whatever it may be, or coaching. All those capabilities are there, so people can offer one-to-one teaching classes. They can do small groups. They can do large-scale webinars, or you can come on and offer your time. So people can come on and offer to help people with certain projects based on their income, based on their hourly rates, and leverage their skills that way. And then we also have a whole program around sales leads and being able to integrate all different types of small businesses. But the whole idea behind it is giving people an opportunity to leverage the skills they have. Everybody has a lot of talent, a lot of skills. What's missing is an avenue and a platform where they can go and say, this is me, this is my skills. I can teach you, I can educate you, I can share what I know, and bring buyers in around that and create income. So that extends from a school teacher who just wants extra income all the way up to someone who may be a great hobbyist and can offer their skills around drone flying or whatever it might be. So
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I know a lot of people who are great at certain things, whether that's leadership coaching, life coaching, health training, this, that.
yep,
But the hardest thing for most of them is marketing and sales.
it is.
They're great at what they do, but then when it comes to finding people to sell their expertise, their knowledge, the trainings, the coachings, and stuff like that, becomes quite a hard thing. But Stephen, aren't there already places like Udemy, places like Skillshare, and so on? So
Sure.
why would somebody go to KnaQ? What's the unique value proposition, either for people offering their services or for people coming to buy those services?
Yeah, exactly. It's a unique place because it really is a community that we've created on this platform of basically buyers and sellers, and we kind of focus on the consumer as well, and bringing lots of different options together. So you may need tutoring services. You can come on KnaQ and find a great tutor. You may want to learn about cryptocurrency, and there'll be somebody there doing a webinar on crypto, or taking a cooking class or whatever it might be. And we focus on all those different needs we call them 24 different categories. We call it the obvious, the obscure. The obvious is I need an accountant. The obscure might be, that person who's a drone flying expert, and that's one of your hobbies. So our goal is a little different than others because we're really focused on the person as an expert, like you just described, and giving them a platform to be able to show everyone their skills and their knowledge and their capabilities, and then, bring buyers in around that, which is kind of a different approach than we're seeing from other competitors in the marketplace. So you can do a lot more on our platform, and we can enable people very quickly. One of the things we really found too is the barrier to entry right now has become so high for people. You want to start a company, you've got to first create a website. Then you got to start looking at paying for SEO, which is a $50 billion bill every year that people pay just to try to be on the first page of a search. So we've done everything we can to sort of eliminate that whole barrier to entry. You can be up and running on a platform in about 30 minutes, offering your services, and start to monetize whatever skills you have within our community, as well as driving your own people to the platform as well, and monetizing it that way.
Okay, so this platform, this is something you recently started, right? Or recently launched publicly?
Yeah, it's actually going live on the 1st of January. We're in our final beta right now. And
Okay.
you can go to knack.com and register. And but yeah, we're very excited about launching it. We think there's a massive need out there. We talked to so many people, and it doesn't matter whether you're a college student who just graduated or has a whole bunch of student loan debt and needs to figure out how to start working that down, all the way to people who are going into retirement and worried about how am I going to survive so many years and looking for just supplemental income. It could be income just to have dinners and have some entertainment, and it could be a full-time income for a while as well. So we kind of stretch across all different avenues there.
Stephen, if I may ask you, and feel free to answer or say no, this is our business secret, but every now and then I meet somebody who is aiming to create a marketplace of some sort.
Yep.
A demand and offering of certain either goods or services and so on. And being the marketplace, I think it's the hardest business model, because you don't have just one target audience. You have minimum two target audiences that need to somehow overlap, and you need to really balance that nicely, because on one hand, if you have too much people coming in but not enough offers, people will stop coming. And if you have too many people offering stuff but nobody coming to buy, well, people will give up and leave the platform as well. So it's a really, really hard business model, because you really have those two things and you need to balance them. So do you have any tips, tricks? How are you guys doing it? Because I see it very often, but it's very hard one to pull off.
Yeah. So, I mean, our approach is a little different, because we're really, we're focusing on people coming to the platform who want to create a business, and they see us as an avenue of doing that. So every person has their own dedicated pages on our site, dedicated URL. It really becomes your store, right? And then from there, what we're doing is training people on where to go next, right? In addition to KnaQ driving demand, it's really you tapping into your network as well. And we think that's a really important step. So whether it's one person on our platform who's tapping into their network and now we're driving demand and they're successful, or 10,000 is kind of not, it's kind of irrelevant to us. We want to make every person a success. And so you look at an example of a teacher who joins tomorrow and says, well, I want the extra income. I don't want to have to build a website. I don't want to have to do all those things. And I could be on the platform. But immediately we have all kinds of training and things that we do with everyone on how they tell their story to the world after that. They can go right to their right to the parents, right to the students, basically saying, I'm on KnaQ. This is my page. If you want to take math lessons, all you have to do is come and register. So it's really important that people see this as their own presence and their own store. And by doing that, they're interacting. So our goal is not to be a giant platform where, we're driving millions of people in demand and everything goes that way. It's about every person creating their business within our platform.
Okay, I understand. So a little bit like Shopify, a little bit like a marketplace. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very much like a Shopify for services in a sense. Shopify is very much focused on product, and we're focused on services.
Okay, cool. Well, Stephen, what's the best way for people to find you, reach out to you? Is it website? Is it your LinkedIn profile? Something else?
Yeah, LinkedIn profile and knaq.com, KNAQ.com is really where I spend all my time.
Okay, perfect. Well, Stephen, now we are at my last question, because sometimes I forget to ask something, and maybe you feel it's very important for the audience to hear that. So I call it the last golden nugget of wisdom. So the stage is yours, and please share whatever you feel is the thing that they should hear today.
Yeah, I think the big thing for entrepreneurs is keeping control. I've just seen it, personally experienced it, seen it for so many people that you allow, you've got an amazing company, amazing idea, you start building it up, and then when you start bringing in other people into the mix, you start to lose that control. And I think that's a really important thing that everyone just needs to be aware of. And I also think with everything going on right now in the economy in the world, getting to the place where even if things change tomorrow, and hopefully they don't, that you're still going to be fine. You still have your business, you can still grow it, and be successful. So it's important. Someone told me once, when you build a business, it's sort of like building a house. You build it one brick at a time for your foundation. You keep it solid, and from there, you can build a skyscraper if you do it right. So
I say the same thing. I'm always using that. I mean, it's so much easier for people to understand, because we all know that when you buy a piece of land, first you need to do some drawing, some business planning, and then you start with the foundations. And depending on how those foundations are done, you can either build a simple house or you can build a skyscraper. And it's so much easier than trying to explain that through the business words. A few years ago, I don't know what, there was a post on Facebook, and I commented something about business plan, and I wrote a few things about, okay, you don't necessarily need a 40, 50, 60 page business plan if you're not going to the bank or something like that, or applying for funding. But you do need a little bit of a plan and structure to it. And then some guy wrote to my comment saying, dude, this is 2017, 18. All you need today is an Instagram account. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm too old for this shit. But yeah, Stephen, this was a wonderful conversation. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sharing your story and everything else with me and with the audience. Most people watch this on replay, so I'm sure plenty will be able to see this conversation, and seek you out, connect with you either here on LinkedIn or they will go to your website. You said you guys will go public on 1st of January. Am I correct?
Yep, January 3rd.
Oh, January 3rd. Okay,
Yep.
Cool. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, thank you. I appreciate you for everything that you do. I wish you all the best. I wish all the best for KnaQ. And I'll talk to you hopefully very soon again.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, this was Stephen. Interesting story of that first company of his. It just reminds me of so many things that I've done in the past, and how things didn't sometimes turn the way you're hoping that they will. But yeah, if you're somebody who is an expert in something, or like she said, if you want to do some of teaching, coaching on the side, feel free to visit his website. Feel free to reach out to him. I think this was our last LinkedIn Live for this year. We're taking a little break, mainly because we are doing this lives at 9:30 p.m. my time, because I'm here in Europe. And people are starting to do fireworks and stuff like that. And then my doggies downstairs, they go crazy with barking because they're so afraid of that. So yeah, I just said, you know what, let's wait and let's continue with this interview series after the new year. So right now I'm gonna say happy holidays to everybody. I hope you're all gonna be okay, and great, and enjoy the holidays, and have a great end of the business year. Be healthy, be okay in the craziness around us. And yeah, I'll see you next year. Boy, does that sound crazy. But yeah, I'll see you next year. Take care.